Hello, everyone.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Angelica.
And you are listening to the LDAYS Plugged In podcast. Today, we are giving you the DL on LDs and Friendships. Before we get into the episode, let's give you some upcoming news.
Friendships can start right here in our summer programs. We're offering a social skills summer camp for kids ages 8 to 12, with 4 locations throughout York Region and Simcoe County. It's a great opportunity for your child to build social skills while having fun in the sun. To register, visit our website at www.ldays.org. That's www.ldays.org.
And for parents, we're also running presentations designed to help you better understand key areas that impact your child's development. We will be hosting a children's mental health workshop virtually on June 18th at 7 o'clock p.m. Guest speaker, Vicki Cochran, will be exploring the link between children's mental health and LDs and ADHD, highlighting how mental health challenges can affect learning and focus. This is a free resource to aid you on your journey, so be sure to mark your calendar for this event and register today by visiting our website at www.ldays.org. That's www.ldays.org.
Thanks, Anthony. And yes, spots are filling up fast, so don't wait. So, Anthony, this topic that we're going to discuss about today, which is about friendships, is such an essential. I feel like it's crucial too at the same time. I know at our younger years, we start to learn how to socialize and get along with other people. And it's could be very difficult for somebody with a learning disability. And I feel like for myself, when I was in my younger days, I was so shy to speak up. I didn't want to be, pointed out in the crowd, asked to read out of, the material or books. I just felt like for me, it was such a hard time and very difficult. And maintaining friendships was one of the hardest things I had to go through in my primary school years.
Thank you for sharing that, Angelica. And you're right. Indeed, the topic today, friendships, it's such a simple concept to understand, but very encompassing. And I think it tends to go into different stages. So early childhood, late childhood / adolescence, and then probably adulthood and beyond. And I think childhood friendships in particular, there is a bit of a learning process and leeway for everyone. But you're absolutely right that certain things and often negative experiences, unfortunately, can definitely be exacerbated by people who have learning disabilities. It's all about navigating a social atmosphere, especially for young kids, because that's usually, especially those without siblings or kids who also live close by. A lot of times the early years in school are often children's first experiences engaging in cooperative pretend play and just learning skills such as empathy, negotiation, problem solving. And like everything that humans do, there isn't going to be a perfect process. I guess to follow up with you, Angelica, is there something that during your childhood years that in terms of building relations with people that you found particularly difficult?
I think for me, it's more of the social aspect and just being nervous all the time and super shy, and you wanting to be able to make friends, or you're in that, let's say you're in a group setting at this age, especially childhood friendships are from 5 to 12, it's more of how do I interact with a person? How do I ask them, hey, can I play with you with the same activity? It's crazy because I shared a little bit about my son who's autistic, and I see this part where, they're at that age where they can actually socialize and mind being nonverbal. It's become a little bit difficult, and having the other child understand, hey, he's nonverbal, but he will interact with you in his own way. And sometimes the child will just ask me, like, why doesn't he play with me? Why doesn't he answer me back? And, it's just creating that awareness of saying he doesn't talk, but he does enjoy your presence around you, like around him, if I'm saying that correctly. But it's kind of brings me back to when I was a kid. I was verbal, but I was very shy. I was very nervous. I felt like I had that social anxiety in me. And I don't know what the fear was. Like, I don't know even till this day, this fear that was instilled in me to not be able to speak to other kids. I'm not sure if it was because I was English as a second language. I don't know if I just didn't have the confidence. Like, I look at my son, he can really walk. Like, you know, that phrase that we hear, you can walk the talk. I can see my son doing that, even though he's not talking, but he can really present himself in a certain way. He's a good problem solver. Like, he's able to do all the other things. But when it comes to him being nonverbal, it's a little bit challenging, and I kind of see myself in him a little bit. I was talking, but I just didn't know how to take that fear out of me and build that confidence. I kind of wish I had that confidence that my son has now and be able to go back and just use that confidence, build up on that confidence. It's very hard at the end of the day. It really is.
It definitely can be, Angelica. And I think as to adults looking at this, if I had to draw a parallel, you brought up previously that there was a fear in your case, a fear of talking with people, a shyness. And with your son, it's not so much a fear, but he senses that there's a disconnect between people being able to pick up that he's nonverbal and engage with that, rather than just engaging with him, or at least trying to engage with him through more conventional means. And then it's almost like disappointed might be too strong a word, but they don't understand why that's not resonating as much, or at least that's what I get from what you tell me. And from my own perspective for this, I think when I was younger, a lot of times I struggled with scripting in the social sense, like trying to understand what rules do you follow. And I think a lot of times, if I would do miss a social cue or something ended up being funny, I would go with that because I think it's a lot easier mentally to act as if, oh no, that wasn't a mistake, or I don't know what's going on. I meant to do that. It was meant to be an attempt at humor. And, it's almost like when you watch Saturday Night Live and the people start laughing and saying their lines, you know that they still understand that they're in a role and there's a bit of control with that, right? Rather than just somebody trying and it's patently obvious that they don't know their lines at all. I think that's what I was trying to avoid. And I think, like you, it stemmed from fear and a lack of understanding. I just went with it as opposed to shyness. My stance was to try to do, okay, I'm going to make this humorous. I'm going to clown around. And that's how I'm going to build friends at a young age.
I really feel like even back in the day, well, we're kind of a difference in age gap by, I don't know, let me say 5 years. And I feel like things were different back in the day. I don't know, the way I was brought up in primary school, there was a lot of group activities, but also I feel like there wasn't enough resources. And then when I look at it now, there's like endless of opportunities. There's ways to develop that speech. Like, I'm in with my son, but there's ways to just try to build your kid's confidence. And I felt like I wish I had that when I was younger, because again, it's like, what was that fear when I was a kid? What was I facing? Was it something in my mind that's telling me, no, you're just nervous. You can't, like, how do you shake it off? Right. How are you able to develop that confidence and be able to just have those foundations of social skills? And as I got older, I kind of felt like it was more difficult, because then now you're trying to develop these friendships, trying to make new friends. You're becoming that teenager, preteen. And I just felt like, if for me, it was such a struggle. And I just thinking of it, could it be because I carry that learning disability over my shoulders, and carrying that I have this learning disability, I'm not able to do everything, or self-doubting myself, which I shouldn't have. I don't know. I was hard for me to maintain friendships. It was really hard. I'm not going to lie.
Thank you for being honest about that, Angelica. And I think this is kind of a difficult concept to label. What I mean by that is I think it can encompass different things. So, for example, just to you personally, you brought up how I think maybe part of it was English was my second language. I think part of it was due to my learning disability, where it can definitely be more than one thing. And just going into this episode, I was kind of examining my own experiences. And what I was curious talking about with you, Angelica, is trying to think ahead for the future. I guess if I had to recommend anything to parents of children who have learning disabilities and in terms of fostering like socialization, I think what I would personally recommend is probably I feel statements, as I'm sure most people are aware of. So I feel left out when this occurs. It puts not the onus to the person being addressed, but rather that it allows the person saying the statement to express themselves. And also even things that such as board games or puzzles that people can do in groups. I think for young children especially, that can help with setting a social boundary because there's repetition, there's predictability in there, and it allows them to kind of put things together. But that being said, I'm unlike you, I'm not a parent. So if there is something that you'd like to add to that, I'd love to hear it for like insight purposes. And I'm sure the people listening would love to hear it as well.
For sure, definitely. And as I'm going through a different journey with my son, and again, he is autistic and I'm the one with a learning disability and ADHD, I start to like, okay, who do I speak to? And I want him to realize that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be able to get resources. And I feel like that's like a stigma too, even now, like just the simple of mental health. Mental health isn't simple, but it's just trying to get help is always the hardest for anybody at any age. And I would want to be able to provide resources for my son to be able to develop that confidence, develop the skill that he needs. And if I were to go back in time to my younger self, I wish I was able to say or be recommended, maybe I do need help with something. Maybe there's some trauma. Maybe there is something that's in me that needs to just come out and really have someone understand what I'm going through. So I feel like with the LDAYS, we have so many programs in place. There's so many resources. I know we gravitate to YouTube, we gravitate to articles, but I just feel like just asking somebody for help that can guide you into the right direction is definitely going to help you and develop and, just figure out what is it? What is it? Maybe it's just a simple little thing like you said. And I really like what that you said there was, I feel this, I feel that, I feel I don't fit in, or I feel like I need to speak to the teacher, whatever it is. I feel like starting that from the basics is great, and then try to get help externally to really see what the situation is and how they can help.
Yeah, exactly. And I think looking at this through the lens of for young children in particular, I think it's about establishing those building blocks, but also understanding that socialization, like any form of development, is a process. It's not going to be perfect. And it's okay if, for anyone listening, your child at some point, their ability to do this kind of plateaus or goes through changes, or even if it regresses to a certain extent at times, it doesn't necessarily mean that the strategy is failing. And I'm particularly thinking about this in the next stage of someone's development, adolescence. Ideally, we can have a world where, every single teenager feels acceptance, and that's a great ideal to strive for, but adolescence is such a pivotal time in terms of identity building. So I'm also don't feel comfortable being on this podcast and saying that, oh, that's definitely realistic. And if your teenager struggles with identity, it's unhealthy. When frankly, I think the opposite is true. Name me one teenager that has never struggled with their identity, right? It's just, now that being said, where do we draw the line between, okay, here's exploration and it's okay to have different phases of acceptance and learning about yourself, while also putting things in place that can make the process easier for our child.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Going through the whole who am I? Who is Angelica at 13? Who is Angelica at 16? Who is Angelica at 18? And I feel like even high school has put so much pressure socially with everyone because you build those friendships all the way till grade 8. Sometimes your friends don't even go with you through high school because, maybe they move and then you got to start all over again and find that friend. And I feel like I can't say it works out for everybody, but for some of us, it's intimidating. Your best friend that you carried on from grade 1 to grade 8 is no longer there for you. And now you got to make a new friend in grade 9. That's hard. That's really hard. And I feel like as an adult too, it could be difficult. But I think it's very crucial that during this time, especially teenage and high school, I felt like for me, getting a job was super, super helpful. It was like, I don't know what was in me that all of a sudden I just blossom out. I know it's weird to say that, but it's the truth. I've worked with older people. I've worked with adults. I've worked with people in high school that were older than me, that they were in grade 12, grade 11 when I was starting in grade 9. It was just like, wow, this is completely different. Let's just say that. It was completely different night and day. This is the real world. So for me
I
to,
think that's it right there. I think you
yeah,
realize that the world is bigger than high school, which for a lot of people, a lot of students, I should say high school students, prior to working, that might just be their world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but usually that is going to mean your peers are the same age. You're generally doing the same things each day. You're in the same type of spaces. Whereas for a lot of people, that discovery that, oh, there's much more to the world, and you're going to be with people who have often comes from different walks of life than you, different age groups, you get to experience that earlier if you start working around that age. And I think even on a subconscious level back then, you realized that, Angelica, and like you said, you blossomed because you realized that the social rules were different than what you were used to, and maybe that instilled a newfound sense of confidence in you. Now, what I would suggest for this though is how exactly we transgress this to even current teenagers who might be listening. And I think work can definitely be an outlet for that. I also think there can be ways of exploring spaces such as certain groups, associations, clubs. I think those can also be ones where there's maybe low social pressure but high creativity. So maybe ones based on art, music, gaming, where there's a common activity bonding, but it's the socialness that's really the key fixture there.
and I feel like here it's kind of easier than, dealing with it when you're a young child at the age of 5 to the age of 12. I guess with in this part, I feel like you can navigate it in different ways, how to start a conversation, just like, oh, how was your day? What did you do last night? Did you watch that hockey game? Just simple conversations that doesn't have to be like, hey, my name is Angelica and what's your name? Like you don't have to do the whole formal introduction. You can just really be like, oh, great. I love your hair today. How's that? How did you get it done? Like I feel like you could just pick up little things. Oh, I love your shoes. Did they come in other colors, or where did you buy them? Just simple little things. And that's what I've learned throughout my years in working in retail is just how do we interact with the customer? It's all about customer service base. And I really took that and ran with it for the rest of my life, literally, because it really helped me develop the social skills that I needed. For those listening for the first time, I've expressed before in previous episodes that the first time I've ever accepted my learning disability, I was probably like 27 years old. So that was a long time ago. And having to deal with the I have a learning disability has affected throughout my whole childhood and teenage years. So it was hard for me. But work was my outlet to learn how to socialize with others. And it really helped me develop those skills that I was missing out on. But I feel like to maintain your friendships, yeah, I made friends. I did. And I'm still friends with them, which is pretty crazy because you don't hear that very often. But it's always having those common interests, feeling that your friends, even those friends that I have today, are from high school and a couple from elementary. It's maintaining that same similar interest, right? You know, we we really just mesh together, and you'll know that for yourself, intuition, with your intuition, your gut feeling. The friends that I have been with me since, like I said, since high school. And it's amazing to see how we've developed over time, how we got into our careers. But again, it doesn't have to be forced. And if you feel like you're forcing these friendships, it's probably not meant for you, and it's okay. if you're comfortable that you're able to talk about, hey, yeah, I went to go watch a movie or try this new popcorn with your friend, then you know that's a really good, friendship, a good communication. So don't pressure yourselves to be like, I need to make friends with everybody. You just got to find the people that you really blend with. And it even starts with your classrooms. It starts with the extracurricular activities. If it's dance, if it's gaming, if it's chess night, whatever it is, you'll find the common interests and then you'll be able to communicate with them. I know it's hard. It's really hard. There's so much pressure, but try not to have that pressure on you. It's going to work out. You're going to find your amazing group of friends, because I have, and it's been fun.
Well, like, I guess to add to that, and I've been, again, just trying to think of, in the lead up to this episode, I was thinking about experiences and socializing both as a young child and now what we're discussing with adolescents. And as you said, there, it can definitely feel hard. It can definitely feel like there's pressure, but both for any teenagers or parents of teenagers with or without learning disabilities that are listening, if I had to make a suggestion, I would say one way to relieve that pressure is to get more comfortable being able to communicate your boundaries. Now, I think a lot of times when communicating boundaries gets talked in popular culture, there's this notion that, okay, the person who is communicating their boundaries is doing so because another person in their life, whether that's a friend or whoever, is overexerting themselves too much into the person who needs to communicate their boundaries. So they're being too involved in their life. And I want to say, like, just thinking of my own experience as a teenager, I don't even think it's that. I think a lot of times just clarifying what you're after. So but particularly for teenagers who have learning disabilities, where sometimes the rules need to be made explicitly clear, I think it can be a big difference if you can say to a friend who you like, but maybe you feel like there's this friction between when they always contact you, saying something like, I really like hanging out with you, but sometimes I need quiet time after school to just recharge, is a great way to communicate your boundaries in a way that's assertive, but you're not placing blame on yourself or the other friend. And then that can later build into being more assertive to one day at the workplace, whether that's for their first time job or later, whether they want to go into post-secondary, whatever the case may be. It just ties into what we really strive to do here with the LDAYS in terms of knowing yourself, acceptance. I think being able to have boundaries and understand the boundaries of others by proxy is a great tool for not just socialization, but a whole bevy of things.
I definitely agree with that. And just try to reduce the pressure. That's all I got to say. And have fun. You'll meet people in unexpected ways. You might have that common interest. You both like math, and that's it.
Right.
So honestly, in my personal opinion, I feel like you just gotta take it easy. Don't put too much pressure. Find that common interest and start with the small talk. You don't have to go straight into like, hey, I live down the street, or I don't know how the teenagers talk nowadays, but I'm assuming it's more like, did you watch that show last night? Or I don't know, TikTok's the big thing still, is it? I don't know anymore, but maybe you have a shared common interest of one particular TikToker. I don't know. It's a great way to start, especially just to kind of break the ice. But overall, if you're still struggling, I would suggest to reach out to another peer if you're able to, maybe a coach. I'm not sure what the schools have nowadays. Even a teacher can help out. Maybe your family members can help you out and kind of see, okay, what's going on, but I just want you guys to really enjoy and find that common interest within other people, and you're going to find your great friends for sure.
I think that's really insightful, Angelica. And I also think being able to have, as we talked about, set boundaries with people, have small talk with people, understand where you can draw similarities with people, even if you're maybe in new atmospheres and it doesn't exactly feel comfortable at first, is a great way to, frankly, for any current teenagers listening, practice for the future. Adult socializing, particularly I would say the age of maybe 25 onwards, is definitely a whole different kind of ballgame. I think making friends at that stage, and adult socializing in general, with or without a learning disability, can be particularly difficult at times because you're juggling so much. Now, that being said, I don't say this to frighten anybody who's listening or to make them feel like, oh, prior to that age, like enjoy your friendships because that's as lively as things are going to get, because that's not the case. It's just you're going to probably have a lot more situations where you may be put with people that know the same person you know, but you don't know those people well, and vice versa. So whether that's weddings, whether that's work engagements, whether that's if you have a child, well, Angelica, you know about this more than I would, but taking your kid to daycare, and maybe you're running across the same fellow parents every day, and it's just, a conversation starts. Having those skills is important. And I do have to say something that I've noticed, and it's not to place blame. I guess for context, I should say that I'm an employment counselor. I run into this challenge I find with current young adult clients where there seems to be, with a lot of them, this arrested development in terms of these skills, or this heightened anxiety. And if I had to take an educated guess as to why that is, I think having a multi-year pandemic where a lot of which most of the communication that had occurred was virtual, I think really caused a bit of a skill deficiency there. Now, again, I'm not saying that they were the only ones affected by this, because clearly they weren't, nor am I doing this to place blame and or just rip on them, but I am saying that it's a notable it is a difference I notice. And to me, if anything, I think it's just a further testament of why it's important to acknowledge these skills, try to build them early on where they become more natural. And I just think it can be empowering for people, and especially for people with learning disabilities.
The one thing you said there that kind of just brought me back was adult friendships. That's a hard one. And going into college or university, when you don't have the same friends with you, everyone's kind of like, hey, I'm going here, I'm going there. We'll keep in touch. And now it's a whole new set of challenges. It's making friends with the people that you're going to school with and maintaining those friendships throughout. And for me, it was really hard. I remember there was one acquaintance from the high school I attended, and I saw this person at orientation, and then I saw her again at the first week, and that helped a lot. But then it was like, we're not in the same classes, we're just in the same school taking the same program, but we're on a different schedule. And for me, it was difficult because now when you go to college or university, it's not everybody is going to be in the same age group as you. We're going to be talking about I remember having a gentleman in my class who was actually in his late 50s taking a course. So there's different age groups, there's different ways of communicating. But if it wasn't for that job that I had, I wouldn't be able to socialize. So there is challenges that come with it. It's not like high school. It's kind of like you're out there in the real world and just figuring it out. Okay, who am I going to talk to? A lot of group work depending on your program. And mine was like that. And I was able to have the opportunity to work with different people, but also, how do you work with people? How do you communicate with people and maintaining those friendships? Do I have any friends from college? I do. Very few of them. And then what you mentioned in the workplace, when you're actually in your career or in that part-time job, when you're taking that break, again, it's like, hey, I'm so-and-so. Or if there's a new person, how do you greet them? I feel like it's easier, in my opinion, when someone new comes into the workplace, you're able to kind of just like, hey, great, nice to meet you. Let me show you around. I feel like that's so much easier for me. And I will tell you, so being in the construction industry for myself, there's new people every single day. And I have to do orientation on these people every single day. Has it become easier for me? No, it hasn't. And I'm 8 years into this, and I feel like it's a little bit of difficulty because you're not sure what type of person you're going to get. So I, even till this day, and I just want to share this because I feel like a lot of us struggle. It's okay. I sometimes struggle every single day when there's 30 people in a room that I have to talk. It could be 5 people. It could be, like I said, 30. It's still hard to talk to people because you're just trying to figure out how are they going to react? Are they going to cooperate? It's still a challenge for me. But to build friendships within the workplace, it's been luckily I've been able to develop that skill in socializing. Podcasting has helped me a lot, especially with my own podcast and being able to talk to many strangers and people and professionals. It's helped me develop the social skill that I never had before. And I really love the opportunity because I was able to again blossom in a different way as an adult. I was able to carry on different skills. Before, if you were to catch me at a Starbucks, Anthony, and you would tap my shoulder and be like, "Hey, I remember you from 10 years ago," I would just be like, "Who are you?" But if you were to tap me on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, remember me? I'm like, I know you from 10 years ago. Did you go to the school?" I'd be like, "Oh my God, yeah, how's it going?" Even though I didn't, I'd still play along, right? But regardless, it's just the skill that you develop over time. So, in my opinion, having a job at a young age has really helped you develop who you are as a person, what you want to do in life, how you're going to socialize to people. I've gotten yelled at the workplace, and you develop the skill throughout your whole entire retail career, in my opinion, to learn how to build up that, poker face, that reaction. I don't flip out. I'm just like, okay, I understand how you feel. I'm going to help you out. And
Yeah.
also as an adult, I feel like the same skills you would do as a teenager is the same thing. Sometimes when I want to get to know somebody, it's like, okay, I usually start something simple. You don't have to think about it too much. You always got to make it casual. Great shoes. Or
And
how
that
was your evening?
And that right there, I think we just talked about making it casual, what you react to is all part and parcel of the process of adult socializing because you have a lot more autonomy. You have a lot more freedom to basically explore what works and doesn't work for you. But at the same time, I don't think you should limit yourself, particularly for people with learning disabilities. So let me give you an example. Me personally, in terms of reacting to stimuli, I despise restaurants with loud music and or where people are tightly packed together. And I think for me, that's because when it's a loud place, but talking isn't the main focus. So for example, a dance club, I'm okay with that because the medium of communication is dancing. You're not speaking, so I don't need to be heard. I can see others, they can see me. Whereas if it's something quieter, such as talking with someone by walking outdoors or a restaurant without loud music, well, there's no disconnect there either because I feel that the stimuli is focused on talking. I can focus on the person or the people. Loud restaurants personally trip me up because I think it overrides my stimuli. And I have a very hard time maintaining focus with people. And I overall don't find it as enjoyable of an experience as I would if the restaurant wasn't so loud. Now, does that mean I turn down every social opportunity that takes place in a loud restaurant? Or if I walk into a restaurant and immediately find that their music is loud, I want to dart out and just leave? No, but I know about my preference. And I think for me, it's not about being antisocial, it's about being able to preserve energy for meaningful connections, especially when you're an adult and your time tends to be limited. So I guess if I had to give that advice to people, it would be try to figure out what your preferences are and try to look to build a connection that way with your friends too. If there's a way of communicating or a forum, a setting that works for people, I think that's the best to try to use.
I love that. I really do. And I think also one of the big thing is how to be a good friend to someone with a learning disability. In my opinion, it's just understanding their boundaries and really make them feel like they are in a safe space. I feel like discussing, being open about it. Like, I know for most of my friends, they didn't know that I had a learning disability until probably like late in high school. But also they just didn't understand it. And they were confused too. But you don't look like you do. You talk all right. But I said it's not just about speaking. It's just more of the written component or maybe the way the instructions go into my mind. And sometimes I don't get it. Like there's a whole thing with it. So I feel like just expressing what you go through and the boundaries, like you've mentioned before, I think that's important, right? Because I wouldn't know that, Anthony. So if I were to invite you out for dinner, it's like, okay, where's the best place? I wouldn't be choosing the place anyway, Anthony. You might as well pick the place.
But yeah, that's also part of a negotiation process. I guess to flip around my experience was talking about loud restaurants. I've also had close friends where I say, "Oh, hey, do you want," thinking back to when I was younger, especially, "Do you want to go to, there's this dance club I heard, or there's this amusement park, or whatever the case may be." And they're kind of being wishy-washy with it, and then eventually it gets to a point where they say, "Listen, I'm going to level with you. I really don't like those places. I don't find them enjoyable." And I used to sometimes fixate on that and like take it personally. And I would be like, "Well, why did it take you this long? Why can't you be explicit with your boundaries?" And looking back, I think honestly a lot of that was internalized. I think that was me also mad at myself, like a failure to recognize like social cues. It almost takes me back to like thinking being more of a clown as a young child. And I think that's where I would just turn that anger outward, that, oh, it's that person's fault. They're not as forward as they should be. And frankly, two truths can exist at once. Maybe they could have been a little bit more forward, but what I said about myself and projecting that anger outwards or disappointment in myself can definitely ring true as well. So I guess to turn this into an advice tidbit, it's we're all on this planet. It's our first time all on this planet, people. Let's all just try to be patient with both ourselves and others, and that definitely includes with socialization.
Definitely, and just not to be shy about it. Like, I feel like once you get comfortable with somebody, you're able to share that. Like, I've managed to maintain friendships in the workplace, and we have a great group of women that I go out every so often. And, even out with the workplace, that I sometimes tell them, like, listen, you know what? I need to decompress for a second. This is just too much right now. You're telling me too much. Let me just step out for a moment, and then we're going to get back onto this conversation. And I felt like that's helped with everybody, even for everybody else in the workplace. Sometimes it can get pretty stressful, and you kind of need that moment to yourself. And regardless if you do have a learning disability or not, you'll be surprised. Like, I've heard people that are like, nope, I'm done. I need to step outside, give me a couple minutes, and then we'll regroup. And it's normal. It's normal. And the same thing with friends. Sometimes there's only so much energy you can get from them and help them out. And you're just going to need that time to regroup. So it will take time, and it will take time for you to get that social confidence. It's just finding the right people along the way throughout your life to really help you with that. And again, for me, it's been a miracle with the jobs that I've had. I had no choice but to open up. Having this podcast that I currently have for myself, not this one, has really elevated that skill. Able to talk to strangers without feeling nervous or shy about it has really helped me in that aspect, and carried it on through my workplace, developing relationships and friendships as well in the workplace. Because one of our core values at the company I work for is friendships. How do we maintain friendships and relationships, right? So it's really nice to walk into a workplace and knowing almost everyone's name, their kids' names, their wives, their husbands, what they did this weekend. It's really nice to be able to have that ability to socialize with people in that capacity, and maintain those friendships. So it's really nice to see
And I
that net.
think you get that by learning to what people, particularly in a workplace, you get that from learning to what people's preferences are and your own preferences, and understanding that it's always a bit of a give and a take. So for example, at my current workplace, we have a lunch break, and I find if it was up to me, I like to have the lunch break to socialize. I like sitting in a group. I like taking most of the time towards that. But some of my colleagues who I'm friends with and they're good people really need that time to kind of recalibrate, relax, recharge. And that's okay. I have to respect that for most of the time. That is going to be their preference, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, there's also going to be instances such as somebody's birthday, maybe the day before a holiday, where everyone on the team gathers and we do something that's ceremonial. And that's, oh boy, am I in heaven when that occurs, because it's just an overload for me, right? And there's both a yin and a yang, and then we can go back to everyone having me time when it's needed. I just find that really that's how you build relations in the workplace beyond surface level chatter. Like it's like what you said, Angelica. It's nice to have a workplace where everyone knows your name, excuse me, and that there's a sense of a deeper connection yes, we're not at any workplace to socialize, but at the same time, you're there for typically 40 hours a week. Most of us are going to be working for a long time, so it's also best to feel some level of connection with the people you're constantly sitting beside, frankly. And I think being able to negotiate ways of socializing can go a long way with people.
100%. And I will say, making friends outside of work is the hardest. I'm still learning. Maybe there'll be a future podcast episode to see how my journey with that is going. But I'm not going to lie, it is difficult. I remember attending a new gym, and I was in a class and I tried to have conversation. See, and this is where I'm like, maybe I talk so much throughout my workday that I have no more energy to talk in the evening because I felt like I completely shut down, which is unusual. And again, sometimes your body and your mind is just like, you know what, Angelica, you're up at 4 in the morning, you start work so early, you talk from literally start to finish. And by the time I want to have a socializing life outside of work, I'm I'm done. So I don't have that capacity to give it to the outside world and to my extracurricular activities. But you know what? It's a journey, it's a process. Again, it comes down to don't put pressure onto yourself. It will happen. You will find those people in unexpected ways possible. You might just be looking at the same plants one day and you're like, wow, I'm going to take this home. And all of a sudden you see that person again. Who knows? But it's an interesting journey. There is more resources in this day and age, I feel like, where you can take advantage and kind of see, how to navigate with the social aspect of things.
Yeah, precisely. And I'm sure, you talked about maybe in a future episode, as you get older, things in some respects might be a little bit harder to navigate. But I guess if there's one final point of this episode, it's exactly that. None of this socialization, I think, is really lifelong learning. It defines our humanity. And as we get older, it's going to change. And again, that doesn't have to be something scary, it can be an empowering thought to really have. As you get older, there's going to be new ways of socializing, most likely, new challenges, but also new bright spots and new ways of just you can really bond with your fellow person and people. And I personally think that's very riveting.
For sure, definitely. And that brings us to the end of this discussion on LDs and friendships. We hope you enjoyed the insights, but let's recap what's important to remember.
We covered quite a bit during this episode, from the hypothetical journey of young childhood all the way to even early and late adulthood. And it encompassed schools, workplaces, everything and anything in between. I guess the key points of this episode would probably be socialization is a lifelong process that comes with its own challenges and bright spots. It's okay to definitely role play, practice, ask questions, and both assert your boundaries and know the boundaries of others. And it's all in the sensories. Knowing what can cause sensory overload of you, being cognizant of sometimes what other people's sensory preferences are, can also go a long way too.
If you're looking for more support or resources, remember that we have a variety of programs available through the LDAYS website, www.ldays.org.
That includes friendship building opportunities through our 6-week social skills program and camp, transitional programs like our SOAR program that support navigating friendships and new endeavors, our highly sought after parent workshops, among many more. There is something truly for everyone at LDAYS.
Lastly, we want to express our gratitude to our listeners for their ongoing support and following along on our journey as we strive to provide actionable strategies and resources.
On behalf of LDAYS, we encourage you to consider donating, which goes to fund our programs, services, and future episodes. Your contributions play a crucial role in helping individuals with LDs and developing the skills necessary for success. If you're interested in donating, kindly e-transfer to info@ldays.org. That's info@ldays.org.
That wraps up today's episode. If you'd like to hear more from us, be sure to stay connected through our social media, website, and newsletters for updates on our upcoming episodes.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Angelica, and this is the LDAYS Plugged In.